Hello out there. It is Miko coming back to you guys on the Time for Change platform. I got my shirt on and everything. So, when y'all know when I pull out the black and white, it's time to vote. It's time to vote. So, if you're watching us on replay, thank you so much for watching us on replay. It's time to vote. I'm so excited today because I have amazing person that's going to be on with me today. He's running for US Congress. His name is Mal Hyman, and this next 30 minutes or less is going to be dedicated to you guys hearing about the person directly from the person who would like to be your next U.S. congressman, okay, representing our district. So before I get into that and before I bring my dear friend Mal Hyman on, I want to talk to you guys about it being election time. So we kind of know that it's election time. Oh, and by the way, if you're with me, drop us a comment, right? Let me know where you're from and let's engage in conversation because, when I bring Mal on, he wants to be your congressman. So he needs to know from us. He needs to know from Marion County, Dillon County, Williamsburg County, what's on our mind, why we want to bring him into office, okay? It is very, 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 very important that he hears from you. So drop us some comments. Let us know what your thoughts. If he said something, you react to it, okay? But let's go back, Marion County. And then I'm gonna definitely bring my friend Matt Hyman on. So, Marion County, it's time to vote. We know it's time to vote because yard signs are everywhere. Remember, a yard sign, though, is not a vote. You must go in to vote. So, what's going on right now in Marion County is we've got an issue. And actually, a couple people have already came over to me with this issue. And the issue is that the folks that are illegally gathering votes are still illegally gathering votes. And I've told you about that in the past. So, where you may be used to people coming to your home and they grab your vote and then they drop your vote off at the voter registration office. Well, that's no longer legal. There's been a state law passed in South Carolina where that can no longer be done. What you can do as an individual is you can request up to 5 voter ballots. You can request them for the people who are in your family. And then when those ballots come to you, they're already stamped. So you just put them in the mail. So nobody needs to take your vote anywhere. So if anybody has your vote, they are committing a felony. You heard me, an actual felony. And it's not your fault if you've been a victim. If somebody has grabbed your vote, it's not your fault. It's your victim. So what we're looking to do is in order for us to take elections back in our community, we have to take elections back in the community. That means we need to squeeze out these people who are illegally stealing our vote. If you have been a victim of somebody illegally stealing your vote, and that means that they grabbed it because your vote should go from your hand to the mailbox if you're going to use the absentee ballot. That's it. Nobody else should touch it. If somebody else has touched your vote, then we need to file police reports. So you can give me a call. You can hit me up on this platform. You can put in comments. You can hit me up in DM. So if you're watching me on Twitter, YouTube, or Facebook, please reach out to me. And we are working with folks to create police reports because once we get enough police reports, then that's how we're going to pressure an investigation. And trust me, as they are handling these votes, they're leaving DNA traces that can be caught. This is 2024. We can catch people that are doing this illegal vote harvesting. All right. And again, the law has changed. So nobody should be picking up your vote. You get your vote in the mail, you put your vote in the mailbox. That is it. You fill out your vote. If this is not happening, thank you so much, Janie. Thank you so much. If somebody else is grabbing your vote, they are doing it illegally. The only person that should have your vote is the mailman. Okay? If somebody is telling you who to fill in the circles for, that is illegal. right? So somebody like Mal Hyman, who's coming to you, who wants to talk to you, those people are disenfranchising your vote. So let's make this happen. Reach out to our elderly. Go talk to grandma and auntie and say, Grandma, auntie, if somebody came and grabbed your vote, and if they have, say, I'm calling Miko Pickett. We're going to file a police report. We just need enough police reports so we can get an investigation going. Okay? And they will be caught this time. Because remember, if their fingerprints are found on more than 5 ballots, that is a felony. And they are doing it. Okay? So, without further ado, again, please share. Please share. If you're watching us on replay, I thank you so much for watching us on replay. Share it because we got to get the word out. Everybody in Marion County needs to know and meet my friend, Mal Hyman. Hi, Mal.
Hey, Miko, great to join you.
Yes, great to see you, friend.
Good to have the opportunity. It's a
So,
big district. It's hard to get in front of everybody, so this is invaluable.
I know. I understand. I totally understand that. And let me tell you, Marion County, we are so excited about the potential growth that can happen in our county. And we're excited about being able to, I mean, it's election season, but hopefully we now know that elections have, right? And every vote counts. And it was so important for me to get you on this platform to talk to Marion County. Well, let's go ahead and get started, Mal. Tell the people a little bit about your background.
Well, I took the path of teaching in 1973 after spending a summer in Israel and Jerusalem. And I taught at the junior high level, the high school level. I've coached. I taught at medium security prisons. I taught maximum security prison when I went back to graduate school. I've taught at Coker University the last 37 years. Raised 2 daughters in Hartsville. They're both married. They're doing well. I've had the chance to serve on local community boards, from the Community Action Agency Board to the Boys and Girls Club to the Genesis Foundation on healthcare to the Homeless Shelter Board. I set up the local Earth Day. The last 15 years I've worked on that. We've had it at Calmia Gardens. At the college, they've allowed me to do all sorts of human rights work in Central America and in the Middle East. My writing is about media coverage of political assassinations, which didn't endear me to the powers that be, but I felt it needed to be said. And the only reason I walked away from teaching is I'm very concerned about where the country is going, and I care about people. And I thought that a campaign of common sense for the common good could resonate even in a Republican district. And I was afraid of where Congress was going and where the country was going. So I found myself running for Congress again.
Again, so you ran before?
2016 and then 2018 to try to get the nomination from the party. I lost in 2018 by 400 votes.
Ooh.
And my late wife had Alzheimer's, took care of her, and she worked on children's issues, DSS child support out of Florence. And a big part of my campaign is children's rights. I believe with Marion Wright Edelman that all children have a right to food, health care, housing, good schools, safe streets, clean air, and clean water. And the country could move this direction when the wealthy pay their fair share in taxes. And we could start doing what Europe has done for more than 70 years.
Yes. You know, I'm 100% down with that. Let's drill down a little bit on housing. So, and I'm a property manager in Marion County and Florence County, and there is a shortage of available housing. And it's not just low income housing, all housing, right? Rental houses. And it creates a problem because we want to bring people to the PD, but there's no place for them to live. What are your ideas, or is that something that and when you are elected to Congress, that you can help us out back at home?
Public housing has been proposed repeatedly by progressives in Congress. The waiting time to get public housing in a big city right now is about 5 years. And there's a shortage of rental units. There's a shortage of starter homes for young families that want to move from renting to buying. There's a role for the federal government in all of this. It can be done publicly or privately or both, but there isn't a constituency that's been demanding it. There is typically in Europe, because unions are stronger and progressive parties are stronger, so that people hear this message. A lot of folks that are renting are living paycheck to paycheck. They're not pushing politically. And a lot of folks that are comfortably in the middle class aren't thinking about housing problems. This, through infrastructure investment for public housing, could create hundreds of thousands of good jobs, but more importantly, it could stabilize millions of American families. And again, we're going to have to tax the very wealthy their fair share so that we have the money to invest in creating opportunity and security in this country.
So let me just drill in a little bit there. So as it relates to the PD, and can you tell us what are the counties that would be in your district again?
Georgetown, Horry, Marion, Florence, Darlington, Marlborough, Chesterfield, and Dillon. Big area, rural and urban. Housing problems wherever I go, run into all sorts of mothers that are in rental units on minimum wage that can't make it and are in tears. I mean, clearly minimum wage has to be a living wage. But, these investments are possible. A number of states make them. A number of countries make them because they believe in stabilizing families and the dignity of people living in a safe place. After having served for years on the board of the homeless shelter in Hartsville, I saw that there wasn't federal or state money and that the county was reluctant to put money in. We had a model shelter in Hartsville, and it closed after 5 years because we couldn't get local support, state support, or federal support. And I thought all of that is possible, but a lot of folks aren't thinking about those problems. And the areas of making the public investment, let me circle back, could be done privately as well if we gave incentives to the private marketplace. My father-in-law was a civil engineer and had done developments, and I thought in retirement he could work on low-income housing. I said, why don't we make it a family project?
Right.
And he went on for about half an hour on that it was, of course, a great idea, and that the red tape was so dense that you aren't going to get any private developers that want to move into that area. So I think we could remove the red tape and let the private marketplace help out. And along with that, public investments to put up public housing for people, along with, of course, investments in areas where people need temporary housing, battered women's shelters, or homeless shelters. All of this can be funded by a federal government, but our friends in the Republican Party have ceased doing things that they used to do 70 years ago, and they've stopped voting for those projects. And that's why we need to make a change in Washington to make those public investments.
Okay, so housing is a big issue. It's not something that can be addressed in the PD in a relatively short term, is what I'm hearing. It's a big nationwide issue.
I think we're going to have to look to the federal government, because the state government could do a lot more, but it's, again, heavily Republican, and they're not voting for money for education or much of any social program. And one wonders, with child poverty so high, what in God's name are they waiting for? But they're not getting enough pressure, and a lot of districts aren't competitive. There doesn't seem to be a sense of urgency at the State House, and that's why I think to move things forward on housing, the federal government's going to have to step in. Now, you and I have talked about something I'd like to share with your audience, that people working on my campaign are also working for a day of prayer and song at the steps
Let's come back to
of the
that.
State
Let's
House.
come back to that. Let's come back to that. I got you. We'll come back to that. So if you're just joining us, I'm on with Mal Hyman. He is a candidate for US Congress in District 7, which includes most of the counties in the PD area. And right now we're talking about housing. If you're joining us on replay, I thank you so much. So yes, please share. Please share the live. Hi, Clotella. Share the live. If you're watching us, please share it with as many people. I'm on with Mal Hyman, running for U.S. Congress for District 7. That includes Marion, Dillon, Marlboro, Chesterfield, Horry, Georgetown. So I hear you on housing. That's a lot to talk about. I'm gonna get back to your day of prayer. You also talked about investing in America, right? Because what I want people to understand, Mal, is we send you to Congress, right? Then we'll have a voice in Congress. Because I don't feel like we have a voice now. I feel like the current Russell Fry is currently our congressman. I have not had an opportunity to call his office. Well, yes, I did. We're working on a grant. I want to take that back. We're working on a grant, and I did call his office. I just don't feel the outreach. I don't feel represented in Congress right now. So I'm hoping that everybody will run and vote. And right now you're running in a primary. So you do have another Democratic opponent who, folks, I'm telling you right now, I do not endorse. Directly asking your opponent about minimum wage, he gave me the Republican answer. So I'm going to ask you about minimum wage, because we know that in South Carolina, you've said it's Republican supermajority for the first time since Reconstruction, right? If you are a progressive, if you're a Democrat, you're in bad shape right now. So that's okay, because we have to work with what we have, right? And what we have is that minimum wage probably will not happen at the state level. But if minimum wage would be increased at the federal level, right? So other states have already increased their minimum wage, $15 an hour, $10 an hour, $12 an hour. Those states have already done it. Our state will never do it.
Right.
So the way that we can get our people lifted out of poverty is we really need the feds to do it. Even though it may not make sense for like New York, I think New York is already 15. If the minimum was 15, New York has already set their bar. So now make it 15 so the rest of us can, across the country, can be raised out of poverty, those that are making less than $15. Can you tell me your thoughts on increasing the federal minimum wage to help do what the state's not doing?
You're right. The state won't do it. They haven't come close to having a vote where they have a chance of prevailing. It has to be done federally. And I agree with Martin Luther King when he was working with the sanitation workers in Memphis. And I'll use this language, my first speech on the floor of Congress. Mm-hmm. He said it's a crime in this wealthy nation for people to work for starvation wages. We factor inflation, minimum wage today is lower than it was back then. It's critical for giving dignity to people. I think it ought to be $15 an hour, but if the compromise is $14 an hour, and we're going to phase it in 50 cents a year for 3 more years or index it to inflation, I'm going to vote for it. I'm going to get it done. I'm going to get it raised. I think that's where we need to go. But also, federal government needs to step in and provide health care for everyone. Those are major costs for people who are low income. Every other advanced industrial society has health care for all. Canadians do it. They live longer than we do, cost 2/3 as much money. And to let your listeners know, in Canada, you pick your own doctor, not in network. You pick the doctor you want. You pick the hospital you want to go to. And it costs 2/3 as much money. It's better for business. And that's one of the angles that I'd like to share in order to move the legislation forward. So I think you're right. For folks that are struggling, We need to think in terms of public housing, better wages, health care for all, and to come back to your question, investing in education, because in a global economy, people need more education in order to compete. And I think looking at high school dropout rates is one useful metric, but even more importantly, you need a couple years of college to get a secure job these days. And that's what we ought to be aiming for. And we've got more than a third of our people aren't getting through 2 years of college. Federal government has a role in making those investments, making sure teacher pay is better, making sure that teachers are better trained, resources can be made available. This is vital, I think, for our national security. And it certainly would create more prosperity, dignity, and opportunity for folks in the low country.
Absolutely. So I am on with Mal Hyman running for US Congress. You talked about education. And I'm going to go back before education. Do we have a commitment that when you are elected to be our next congressman for District 7, that you will bring the issue of minimum wage to DC for us?
As part of my first speech, I think it's vital for dignity. And that's why I use Martin Luther King's language, which incidentally rarely gets used, but he was communicating with it. This is a disgrace. People shouldn't be working for starvation wages. And I'm going to say it until they finally get me on TV and the public is thinking differently about it. Now, it's also clear that as soon as people get that money, they spend it, which means there's a greater need for goods and services, and people get hired to produce those goods and services. So there's a virtuous cycle with this, and it will strengthen the economy as well as strengthen families. To go further on that question, I think it ought to be $15 an hour in Marion and in Hartsville, but $20 an hour in Charlotte and $25 an hour in New York, where the costs are even higher. And there's nothing to stop us from having a tiered system so that people have that dignity and kids have more opportunities. To come back to education, I know that only about half the kids eligible for Head Start are in Head Start. I'm on the Community Action Agency board. I mean, kids got to get that Head Start. We got to make sure that the families have enough food and health care, that kids are coming to school ready to learn, as opposed to looking at their teachers like they're a banana or an apple or an orange because they're so hungry. I mean, I've worked in schools, kids are hungry, they can't learn. I mean, these are basics. And that's why I think all of it comes together as part of a program to protect and give opportunity and dignity to kids. And I think a lot of our non-Trump Republican folks and a number of independent folks will listen if we frame it as children's rights, just as Marion Wright Edelman did in inspiring Martin Luther King's Poor People's March on Washington.
Okay. So where do you stand on student loan debt?
Well, having a couple daughters that had student loans and having gone to a state school, UCLA, when it was in 1968, when I started, it was $300 a year. And we had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. We're winning all the national championships, $300 a year, because it was made affordable by a federal and state government that made my education possible. And that can happen again. But again, we're going to need to tax the wealthy their fair share so that we can invest in opportunity in the United States. We've done it before. We actually did it under Republican presidents in the past, but a lot of that has been forgotten. And our infrastructure, not just education, but roads and dams and bridges and electrical system, used to be the envy of the world, and it was better for business to make these investments. And we can do it again.
Okay. So I take it you support Biden's trying to cut or eliminate student loan debt?
Absolutely. I think there's probably going to be an upper limit politically on how much you can write off with it. But as soon as that debt burden is taken from people, they're going to spend the money to fix their car, their apartment, their home, and it reinvigorates the economy. But also, we have failed our young people by not making education more affordable.
Right.
Dozens of countries around the world, if you can get to college, they make college very affordable. And if you're borrowing money, it's at very, very low interest rates. There's no reason we can't set up a federal bank program to loan out money at 0.5% if people want to go to college. And we ought to make technical college free.
Okay, I love that idea. So you were saying that you wanted to create an event on at the State House. Can you tell the people about your State House event?
We've been calling the last 3 months for a day of prayer and song at the steps of the State House for the rights of children, the rights that I talked about that Marion Wright Edelman and Martin Luther King fought for. And our sense is that if we can bring the church community and the nonprofits and organized labor and environmental groups and all those concerned about kids together for a day of prayer and song, that we can start to galvanize a movement where finally we get some traction at the state level and we make these issues plain to people. If these issues were plain, we'd already be having pieces of legislation proposed and we'd all be talking about them. So for some reason, that sense of urgency isn't there. But I also have to mention that I've been in almost 30 churches, and while congregations like the idea, haven't heard many ministers step forward and say, we're going to be organizing this with you. So I have a feeling while we wanted this to be in September, and we had Congress people that wanted to come in and be at the rally, and a commitment from the state party to reach out to Senator Warnock.
Okay.
But we aren't getting that traction with the church community yet. And I think we may have to put this one on the back burner, and it might be a next year that we need to finally plant the seeds, plow the soil, keep letting people know that this is possible so that we finally can pull it together. And I think if we do it once, we can do it annually, and I think it will grow. And I think after running the rally, day of prayer and song, we can also call for a retreat where those who would like to spend a day talking about policy possibilities could meet, and a new coalition to protect children and create opportunity could be born in this state.
You know, I love that idea, because if you think about it, you run for, when you're elected to Congress, how many years will you be? How many years is your term?
2 years.
Oh, 2 years, every 2-year term. Okay, because before you know it, the people who we call children are adults.
Yeah.
You know, so I love that idea that we do have to get to them old, and we got to pray for them, and we need to work on their rights, make sure that they have adequate education and opportunity for housing and everything. So in Marion County, speaking for Marion County specifically right now, or really any county, can you tell us, we don't see our congressman at all, really. What would Mal Hyman's office setup be like? And do you just go to DC and we never see you here? Like, what would it be? Like, what kind of transparency? How accessible will you be? What would it look like?
I think constituent service is vital and a high priority. And I believe meeting people in the district on a regular basis to hear their concerns, to hold town hall meetings is vital. I've held town hall meetings at Coker for decades. The last few years, we've done it with the local sheriff and local police chiefs. We've done it on foreign policy in the Middle East and Central America, on policies of drugs. I think if you're in elected office, you should be able to lead these discussions. It ought to be part of a listening tour, and we'll clarify the issues. And all of us, if we're a little better educated on the issues, and be better, we'll be stronger. And I can advocate more clearly for what the needs are in the district. I think you have to be working with people And frankly, I think, and you and I have talked about this, but I want to make clear, most change comes to Washington, not from Washington.
That's right.
When the people lead, the leaders will follow. So I'd like to be very close to the district, take those issues that are most important to Washington, and then to try to clarify where things are at in Washington. And I guess it speaks to the teacher in me that education is power. And if all of us understand power in America better, we can better use it. I think America is a redemption story, and the people are the redeemers.
Oh, wow. You know what? I'm going to have to we're going to end it on that. I mean, you definitely have my vote. I am encouraged by the opportunity to actually have a voice in DC, a voice that can carry District 7, which is includes Marion, Marlboro, Dillon, Chesterfield, Georgetown, Horry County, and I may be missing one or two.
You got it.
But it means a lot, sir. It means a lot that you're coming back to the table at this given appointed time. And then I hope for all of you guys that are listening that you will come out, right? Because we can do it. You heard him say last time he lost, that was the primary by 400 votes.
Right.
That's nothing, y'all. Right? So this is what we're going to need y'all to do. We're going to need y'all to go out and vote for my friend, Mal Hyman. Did you have anything else to say before we call it a day?
Sobering note, but I think everything sacred's on the ballot this time. I think our democracy is on the ballot, looking at what Republicans are doing. I think dignity is on the ballot, diversity, women's rights, the environment, housing, all of it's there. The most consequential election in our history. And I think at times we're amusing ourselves to death. This one's vital. That's why I'm all in, trying to get people motivated. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your show. You're an inspiration with the community organizing that you're doing. So it's great to join you.
Thank you so much, friend. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks.
So thank you so much, Clotella. I like what he has to say too. I've been talking with Mal. We've had conversations even before he decided to run. I remember I met him over breakfast a couple years ago and just very, very impressed with him. He's going to need our help, right? He's going to need our help. So this is what I would love for y'all to do. One, we got to stop the cheaters, right? We got to stop those people that are out there harvesting votes. If your vote has been stolen, and I'm telling you, if you filled out an absentee ballot and did not put it directly in the post office, you gave it to somebody who's not your family member. And when I say family member, I mean immediate family member. You're probably a victim. And if you can help us we'll work with you and we'll do a police report. Okay. And if you have not, fill in, vote for Mal and Cynthia O. Ford. You'll be hearing more from Cynthia O. Ford. Fill that out, drop it in the mail. And if you want to go in person, which is the way I prefer, we now have 2 weeks to vote in person. Early vote starts next Tuesday. So you can go to the Marion County Admin Building between 8:30 and 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, except for holidays, starting next Tuesday, and vote. And it goes right in the machines. So it's not like absentee ballots where they get counted later or they're handled by somebody else. This is you going into the Marion County Admin Building, exercising your right to vote in person at your schedule. You don't have to wait for election day. That's just one day. You can go any day, Monday through Friday, starting May 28th. Okay? So let's make this commitment, friends and family. Let's promise we're going to vote. I'm going to vote. And I'm going to bring 3 people. So write it down on a piece of paper. Who am I going to bring? I'm going to bring mom with me. I'm going to bring my best friend with me and my little cousin. Right? I want them to have the opportunity. They may be 19 years old and never voted before. But you vote and bring 3. All right. Well, until next time, guys, it's election season. I'm here for you guys. Let's do this. Let's change our community together. Have a wonderful day.